Hello, everybody. Welcome back into MLS Digest. This is 15 and 15, a weekly recap series going over the most recent match week of MLS action. And we just had week 12, which came off the back of U.S. Open Cup action in the round of 32. And 15 matches after that this past weekend, and a lot went down. Another team getting a touchdown with the extra point on the board, and we'll get to that and everything you may have missed, the top storylines, and all the results in week 12. Before we get into that, please make sure to like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you're new, and let's get right into it. Week 12 slate started out with the Fire beating Atlanta 2-1, and the gap between these two teams on the day was far bigger than what this scoreline may suggest. The Fire had 2.9 XG compared to Atlanta's 0.7, and the first goal came from a Kuipers penalty on another silly kind of handball, avoidable type of thing from Atlanta's defender. And then very late on, it was a Sam Rogers own goal that leveled it, but Kwame with the decider. This was a huge win for the Fire for a couple of reasons. It ended that terrible start at home on the season. It's now their first win at home at the sixth time of asking in 2025, and also ended a six-match winless run before this one. Kuipers as well with the goal is now tied for the Golden Boot with 8 goals on the season, is certainly delivering on that price tag and the DP spot since his time last year, and continues that this year. On Atlanta side of things, it extends their winless run to 6 matches, and the offense is just not creating. This continues to be a problem week by week, and with the players they have, Lagerwey and Ordila's seats continue to get very, very hot. Next up, Minnesota absolutely obliterated Miami from almost minute 1 with 2 first half goals, and then Messi made it close early on in the second half, but this lineup just looks so old at times, and the formation here had Messi kind of as a false 9. Busquets was playing far higher than usual. That midfield decision was kind of questionable overall, and this Minnesota team now bumps up to second in the West, only behind the blazing hot Whitecaps. This was a statement game against this Miami team that is in the midst of travel now. They had this game and now travel midweek after this to San Jose, and then a busy week ahead as well as this coming weekend. They come back for essentially what is rivalry weekend in a lot of games in week 14 when Miami plays Orlando. So yeah, credit to the Loons, and I'm sure it's good for Julian Gresso as well, who didn't start in this one but came off the bench for the final 20 minutes to get a little bit of revenge on this Miami team that completely refused to use him and, just didn't fit their system. Toronto got the better of DC United at home 2-0, and it's now 4 points against DC this season after that opening week 2-2 draw. And Insigne with his first goal of the season after missing about 5 or 6 weeks due to fitness and maybe not being completely in favor with the coach, who knows, but also a couple of assists on the year, and you could tell that goal meant a lot to him to finally open his account on that end for this season. And the second goal came from a cross, dangerous cross. Bartlett tried to deflect it out, but eventually it actually went in as an own goal. And DC United, not consistent week to week. The roster and the development is not the best, and Benteke can only do so much. They won against the Rapids last week at home, but this is just not a team that's going to pull out consistent results. And for Toronto, this was part of what is currently a very long home stretch for them, so good on them for trying to make the most of it. And they have a couple of important matches as well in the coming week to try and build out from the basement of the East. Cincinnati beat Austin 2-1, and this one was the Evander Show. A beautifully curved shot for the first goal early. Brandon Vasquez converted a penalty early on in the second half. Things got a little bit tight and chippy, of course. Austin is that type of team, especially on the road, is going to really sit in if they're not losing during the match. But eventually Evander came out again with a ball that really was almost Messi-esque in terms of the vision there. This lofted kind of Trivela ball, and Valenzuela very aware to get on the end of that, and that was the decider. Evander and Denke, of course, just working wonders for the Cincy team, bouncing back from that kind of head-scratching loss on the road to NYC after 5 wins in a row before that. So they're back to first in the East, actually tied on points with the Crew, who they'll play not midweek, but this coming weekend as part of sort of rivalry weekend, like I mentioned, in the Hell is Real Derby. Montreal getting its first win of the season finally at NYCFC, and this was exactly the type of performance and game you would expect them to need to have if they wanted to finally, get that off their backs. And it's Prince Owusu getting a beautiful goal early on in the second half, and Montreal really just brought NYCFC's sort of style and game to them, and this wonderful goal was the decider. NYCFC, only one DP still. We've kind of talked about that a lot this season, and that's going to lead to inconsistent results. Neither of these teams this season especially have been really high scoring teams with a lot of crazy games, and so you've relied on kind of these moments or two in matches, and especially being on that baseball field at NYC, anything can happen. It was a scrappy game, and Montreal bunkered in a little bit and got the 3 points finally on the road, and maybe that can kickstart a little something. But obviously this is a team that is going to be really starved for consistent winning football, and same thing goes for NYCFC. The Red Bulls getting an unbelievable result in a revenge game from last season's MLS Cup Final, 7-0 against the LA Galaxy. And if things were already looking terrible for the Galaxy this season, especially after last week where they were the first team to allow a team to win without getting a shot on target, well, this just only adds to their troubles, and I really don't know what the solution is. Greg Vanney can only do so much. This roster, because of injuries, because of how many players they've had to let go as well, the defending was just shocking in this game. I think this was more so a statement of how poor this Galaxy lineup is compared to how good this Red Bulls roster may be, because we have not really seen too many signs this season that the Red Bulls can be this dominant of a scoring threat. It's really been moments here and there from Forsberg or maybe Choupo-Moting a little bit, but Choupo-Moting has looked his age in certain games, but it was just early and often for the Red Bulls in this one. The defending from the Galaxy, the marking, and just the lack of awareness of the spaces in behind was just completely non-existent, and then it completely got away from them. They were unmotivated. So yeah, I mean, we'll see if the Red Bulls can really build off this. I still want to see a little bit more from them in terms of the consistency, because I don't think this roster really has it in them to grind out results like this along a long season, but we'll have to see. Orlando and the Revs played out to an amazing, exciting 3-3 draw, and Ojeda with the hat trick. His efforts certainly didn't go unnoticed, but not getting the full 3 points on top of that due to another great performance from the Revs, who are now 5 unbeaten. It was 4 straight wins, including shutouts in all of those, and Orlando as well. Now this pushes their unbeaten streak to 9, and 6 draws in that span with a bunch of 0-0s mixed in there. But regardless, they're not losing. They're picking up consistent points, and that will make them a threat to really any team in the East, and a threat to be considered for those top 4 spots. The Union and Crew played out to a 2-2 draw in Philly, and this is exactly the type of game you want to see and expect from what are now 2 of the East's best teams. And this game had essentially everything in terms of the sequences of play, the goals themselves. Westfield with an absolute banger on a ball that spilled out from into the top of the box, and then a late corner for the Crew, a second header kind of ball in the back post, and Zawadzki is there to equalize late. And pretty fair result, all things considered. These teams are really tough to beat in general, of course, as we've seen this season, and this could be a potential really, really good late Eastern Conference playoff matchup. Dallas and RSL share the points in Frisco, and at this point, what can't Diego Luna do? He's just been putting so many consistent performances for this kind of subpar RSL roster this season, and just an amazing goal to create space for himself on a ball that rebounded to him at the top of the box and just curved it off the inside of the left post. And then Anderson Julio tied it in the second half before Willie Ojeda got a double yellow for a red card, and it was actually his first start for RSL since transferring from KC. He had a couple of sub appearances before then, but not the best way to make your true start debut in an RSL team that is still really lacking a consistent killer in that number 9 spot. The Sounders got the job done on the road against the Dynamo, a team that they've really had some trouble against in terms of just the types of games they've had. It's been really scrappy, especially that playoff series last year that they eventually advanced out of. But this one, 3-1 for the Sounders, and they're quietly having now a little bit of a renaissance in this kind of middle phase now that we're entering of the season. It's now 4 wins in their last 5, including a couple on the road. And Musovski, actually one of the hottest strikers in MLS right now. It's 5 straight games with a goal for him, and 5 goals is actually his best ever total in an MLS season for any club he's been on. So he's been a stellar kind of depth piece for this squad that is now currently without Jordan Morris once again. Jesus Ferreira not really playing the true number 9 at times with that kind of lineup rotation, but they're getting the job done, especially against the West's kind of weaker teams. The Dynamo are one of those, and they'll be looking to move forward as we enter this kind of congested week. Nashville getting revenge on Charlotte in this one, as this had the exact same script as their matchup about a month ago, except the roles were reversed, with Charlotte coming back at home after they went down and Walker Zimmerman got injured in the final 10 or 15 minutes, and then reversed it to win 2-1. And in this one, Abada got things started early in the second half before just a minute later, Mukhtar showing those moments of brilliance that we really haven't seen in the past 2 years or so, and not really since his MVP season. And then only 5 minutes later, Schaffelberg with a greatly placed strike into the bottom right corner. And Nashville has just been cooking. Obviously, they got the 7 on the fire, but at home recently, they've really been putting in performances. And it's not really looking like flukes as well. In terms of the statistics and just the analytics, their XG and everything has just been pointing to the fact that this midfield is really balling right now, and everyone seems kind of fluid in terms of what BJ Callahan wants from his system. San Diego gets the upset win on the road at St. Louis, and the goals were left really late, but St. Louis winning the XG battle in this one considerably, almost putting up 3 XG on its own, and they're really going to be ruining some of those missed chances because San Diego really took it late. Iloski, one of the signings in the middle of this season that they added for that striker depth with Ingvarsson out, getting the scoring started early, and then a really terrible mistake on a badly timed kind of effort with a ball that was going back to the back line, and Dreyer capitalizes on that and eventually scores from an insanely tight angle from the left-hand side before Hebert tried to bring things back on a set-piece play that eventually ended up in him tapping the ball into the net. But eventually San Diego making the most of its chances, and that was the difference in this one. St. Louis created far more with a little bit more consistency and a healthier lineup this time around, but just still not really getting those results at the moment. We'll see if they can bounce back, because midweek they have the derby against Kansas City again. The Rapids fall for a second straight week now after losing to DC United in week 11. And for the Quakes, another amazing result, this time coming on the road and holding a shutout, which has been very rare for them this season. Dewan Jones, one of the newer signings as well this season, scoring right before the stroke of halftime, and then Arango with an insanely cheeky chip to make it 2-0. There weren't too many chances in this one, but the Quakes made it a little bit less of a track meet and back and forth. And for the Rapids, it's been a little bit lackluster in recent weeks in terms of that scoring output. Bassett's been out as well, and really waiting to see what type of spark Cudi Pietro brings once he can actually get match fit and potentially, obviously, make the starting lineup consistently. To close Saturday's slate out, the Timbers got the job done against Kansas City, making it a double now already on the season against KC. And it was an early goal from Santi Moreno that was the difference. And this one was up there, has to be a contender for goal of the year already. There's been a lot of those, actually. We've been saying that almost every week, but this league delivers with the really spectacular goals. You have to go see that one in this game. And honestly, this team still has so many just pure ballers and players that keep you on the edge of your seat, even with Evander leaving, Anthony Moreno and Da Costa now as well. There's just so much fluidity between this kind of front four. And even though Kelsey and Mora have been kind of swapping out starts for the striker role, this team is almost as dangerous as it gets in this league. And at the moment, they're sitting third in the West with that Cascadia Derby against the Sounders coming up this coming weekend. Sunday Night Soccer on Mother's Day delivered as the top-seeded Whitecaps and LAFC played out to a 2-2 draw. LAFC actually getting out to the early 2-0 lead. Delgado got things started on a really long throw-in into the box that just simply wasn't dealt with. Not really what you've seen a lot of from the Whitecaps defense this year. And then Bouanga just doing what he does, especially against the Whitecaps in the past 2 to 3 years. He gets his penalty kicks and almost basically always converts them, and he's been now really riling up his form, one of the hottest players in MLS at the moment as well. But for the Whitecaps, they haven't really been in losing positions all that much this season, but because of their style of play and how much they love to dissect you with the ball in possession, the deficit really didn't matter that much, and White got them kind of back into it very early on after going down 2-0, and then eventually he got the brace in the 70th minute, and pretty much a fair result because LAFC has really had the Whitecaps number in the past couple of seasons, and the Whitecaps are really trying to become this consistent threat now this season. They're looking like the league's most elite team, and it's not a loss for the Whitecaps, a bit of a chink in their armor just for the draw, but still continuing to stay first in the West, and a very good battle between what will be surely two consistent and, obvious playoff teams in the Western Conference. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We have a really busy week and a half or so of MLS action. Obviously, we just had week 12, but we have week 13 midweek on Wednesday with 13 games, and then another full slate in the coming weekend, week 14, before round of 16 U.S. Open Cup action the following midweek. So there's going to be a lot more content in this period, guys, so make sure to look out for that. The Week 13 preview will be posted very shortly after this video drops, ahead of Wednesday's matches. And once again, guys, please make sure to like the video down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I'll see you all in the next one.